the world are attempting to borrow over the next year or two. Financial Times has been reporting that investors are wondering whether the bond market, that's where governments go to borrow, whether the bond market will be able or willing to finance it. Here for the UK, it's going to be the second highest ever year of borrowing this year. But it's not just a story about us, other governments too are anything borrowing. I asked Mary McDougall from the Financial Times what investors are concerned about.
Well, we're coming into a year of big elections, and global debt has been rising quite quickly as governments have been borrowing more to finance, first of all, the pandemic stimulus programs, then healthcare, pensions, and trends like that. And I think bond investors are just a bit nervous that if they borrow too much, that will lead to bond prices going down and increase government borrowing costs.
It's not just a British problem, this though, is it?
No, it's a global problem. Debt's been going up everywhere, particularly in the US. So the US has got big borrowing plans. In a way, for prices, it's less of a concern for the US because they have the reserve currency. But in time, bond investors are saying to me that they're getting a pass at the moment, but there might become a point where markets will exact discipline on fiscal plans.
Are investors flashing red on this? How would you describe it? They're just looking ahead and saying you might want to be careful here, or are they saying, guys, you're about to fall off the cliff, it's going to be a disaster? Just describe to me the kind of the emotions, if you like, you're getting out there.
I think it's the former. I would not say that the markets are flashing red at the moment. You had this big bond market rally, for example, and there's a lot of supply that's coming onto the market at the moment. January is typically a big market issuance, and we have seen pretty high demands in the syndications that have happened. And syndication is when a group of big banks issue a chunk of government debt. The UK had one earlier this week that was very heavily subscribed, although these can be a little bit hard to read into because the orders might reflect how the banks priced it. So it's a little hard to say, oh, it's fine, everybody wants to buy the debt, because the orders are huge, because it just depends on what the price is for the taxpayer.
But nothing urgent. But certainly, if you're thinking about, for example, cutting taxes in an election year and you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, you might want to take into account that there is eyebrow raising going on.
Exactly. I think what people are telling me is that there's very little room to borrow more than what they can afford to. So if they try to, that will just send borrowing costs up, and that will make government financing more expensive.
Mary McDougall from the Financial Times.
Brighten up the new year with your smart speaker and BBC Sounds. You can ask most smart speakers to play whatever you're in the mood for. So if you need a soundtrack for your day, say, ask BBC Sounds for classical. Just winding down? Ask BBC Sounds to play chill music. Or if all you need is a good laugh, ask for comedy.
One of the greatest pieces of 20th century poetry. Beans, but good for your heart.
To get started, just say, ask BBC Sounds.
It's now exactly 5:30. You're listening at 2 p.m. and we'll have a summary of news from Chris.
A new law that will exonerate hundreds of sub-postmasters prosecuted.
And we've come up with quite an astonishing result. So I think there's probably a lot out there to be discovered.
William Barry of Cambridge University there on the genetic origins of MS. It's 13 minutes to 6. Chris can give us a last look at some other headlines today.
The government says it will consider all amendments to the Rwanda asylum plan put forward by right-wing Conservative MPs, despite defending its current proposals to deport some migrants. The energy firm EDF says it wants to prolong the life of the Torness nuclear power station in East Lothian beyond the existing end date of 2028. Train travel in Germany has been brought to a near standstill because of a strike by railway workers. It coincided with a week-long protest by farmers who blocked major roads.
Thanks, Chris. Now, Ecuador is in a state of emergency. Internal armed conflict is underway. Violent gangs, drug-related, have been causing disorder. There have been prison riots and escapes, and it culminated in an attack on a live television studio. You've probably seen it by now. Well, Alina Manrique is the head of news for TC Television. She was briefly taken hostage during that incident and has told my colleague, our producer Marta Santibanez, about the experience.
En la sala de redacción que está mucho más cerca. We were in the newsroom, much closer to the receptionist floor, when we first heard the shots. Many of our colleagues went into hiding, so I chose to hide as well. In a toilet in the newsroom with 2 more colleagues. I took my phone and I asked them to call the police, to let them know that they were in and about to kill us. And then we went quiet, very, very quiet, because they could find us. Until we heard them getting nearer to where we were. It was inevitable. It didn't matter how quiet we were. They kept banging on the doors, saying that they were going to kill us. So we left our hiding spot with our hands up in the air. They hit me, and they took my necklace, and they took us to the main studio. There's about 10 of us hostages. When the police arrived, they heard them and turned crazy. So they tried to escape, using us as human shields.
Alina Manrique, head of news at that TV station. But Will Brooks, the BBC Central America correspondent, who joins us from Guayaquil in Ecuador. And Will, describe the situation there. How ordinary life can proceed when you have this kind of armed gunship going on.
Well, it can't really. I mean, it's the next day after that event, and it wasn't just that event, was it? I mean, that was the most brazen element of the attacks on live television. But at the same time, there was an attack on the City University here. There were bombs being detonated, not just across Guayaquil, but across the country. Obviously, schools shuttered in that moment, so did businesses all over the country. And a day on, there's a lot of trepidation. Those who are venturing out here in Guayaquil are doing so very, very gingerly. There is a lot of private security guards on the doors of businesses, and there are a lot of troops in the streets and police. So yeah, there's a sense of sort of kind of bewilderment at what went on 24 hours earlier.
And is it just Guayaquil that's really been badly affected, or is this much wider?
Well, it's twofold really. On the one hand, Guayaquil is by far the focal point really. There were events in Quito, the capital, and elsewhere. But really, I think this speaks to the fact that this has been bubbling underneath in Ecuador now for years. The drug gang violence has claimed many lives inside prisons during prison riots.